Welcome back to another episode of Index Office Hours. Today is the 5th of July, and this is Index Office Hours, episode 66. Thank you all for attending. We are over the moon to have you all here and participating with us today. So if anyone's new to Index Office Hours, we do love participation. So if you'd like to voice your opinion, please do via voice or in text in the stage chat. This episode particularly, we're going to be seeking a lot of feedback. So if you guys have any particular thoughts that you'd like to share, we would love to hear them. So as I always say, we have an exciting agenda today, and we've posted that in the stage chat, so you can go ahead and review it there. And as we always do at every episode, we have a POAP that you can claim at the end of the episode. Just make sure you listen out for the secret word that we'll mention towards the end. So there you have it. I'm ready to crack on into opening remarks. And this week we have a GRT IQ episode that I personally enjoyed. It was with Sam Williams, who is the founder and CEO of 𝗨𝗂𝗶𝗀𝗀. 𝗨𝗂𝗶𝗀𝗀, if you don't know, is what they claim to be a truly permanent information storage network. So it's a protocol that matches people who have hard drive space to spare, and those individuals and also organizations who want to store that data and host that content permanently. They have this, and then they also have the permaweb, which is a global permanent web page, a global and permanent web of pages and applications. And I've linked in the agenda the R Wiki, so you can kind of dive into all of the different aspects of 𝗨𝗂𝗶𝗀𝗀 if you're interested. So with this episode in particular, it was interesting because it had a more of a philosophical tone to begin with. They spoke about Nick and Sam spoke about the nature of truth and how to access it. They also spoke a bit about, as Nick likes to do in true GRT fashion, talks about, what is Web3 in a very kind of fundamental way. Like Nick from GRT loves to talk a lot about, get certain definitions from people to understand their perspective on topics, and this is one of them. And then they also spoke about the Web3 stack and what's missing, spoke about the origins of 𝗨𝗨𝗶𝗀𝗀, and obviously there's a big partnership that was announced at Graph Day between 𝗨𝗨𝗶𝗀𝗀 and the Graph, so they spoke a bit about that. So if you want to go check it out, I'd highly recommend it. It was an interesting conversation, more of a philosophical one to begin with, but then ended up being very technical. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope you guys do too. So links in the agenda. And with that, I will hand it to Anna to take us into Repo Watch.
Hello everyone, can you hear me all right?
Yep, loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Thank you. So on our Repo Watch today, we have had a few new releases for major blockchain clients. So on Aragon version 2, our new release is 2022-0701 alpha, and it mainly consists of fixes for the consensus layer integration in preparation for the merge, plus other integrity and stability fixes, and introduces a couple of new RPC methods. For more details about what's included in this release, please check the agenda. Then another important release we have had is from Get. So Get now uses a new version of the command line argument handling library. That shouldn't cause any problems. However, another important mention is that ETH chain ID now always returns the configured chain ID regardless of sync status, and this is a violation of EIP 695. However, the previous behavior was causing issues with the consensus layer client. In response to this new Get release, Streaming Fast Get Ethereum version data block 1 and 2 have had new releases. And that's all we have on the major blockchain clients. On the Graph stack, we haven't had any new releases. However, I've seen a lot of new PRs on the indexer service and agent. So before I hand over back to Abel, does anyone want to share any good or bad experiences with these new releases, if you've already tried them?
I could share something about 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀, which is not related to the very latest release, which was the 7.1 alpha, but the one prior to that. So for whatever reason, every time I try to sync new subgraphs, it's those new subgraphs are basically stopping at around 92,000 blocks behind until I restart the RPC, the daemon from 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀. So, and this is something that the POPs team also reported, and I thought it was like something in their configuration, but apparently it's happening everywhere, and it's only been happening after I upgraded to this version of alpha. We were using like a very old beta from February, I think. So which is really weird. Does anyone have the same kind of experience with these latest 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀 releases?
To confirm, Payne, is that the latest alpha releases?
It's not the 7.1 release. It's the one prior to that, 6.5, I think it was.
It's 6.6.
Yeah, that
I
one.
can. There's a issue open. Let me just paste it onto the stage graph, the stage chat. That sounds similar, specifically with that release. So that's interesting.
So Vince says he's got issues with 6.4, no issues with 6.6. Do you also like did it happen similar to what I'm experiencing, Vince? Because I'm curious, like I haven't seen this before. And like the interesting fact is that if I restart the RPC daemon, it sometimes works. So it's unstacking those subgraphs. But this also made one of my subgraphs like skip thousands of blocks ahead for whatever reason when I restarted the RPC daemon, which is pretty much a double-edged sword in this case.
I just wanted to share that we are indexing still with the last beta version. So we run alpha nodes, but we don't index with them. So yeah.
Please keep us updated if you get any help on this.
Yeah, I'm also still on the beta for indexing. Was a surprise that they released a patch for it, and I thought, well, I keep on stable. I remember that I had a problem with one of the alpha version that I'm running, that it's stuck in some kind of queue thingy, and haven't been able to dig into it. But the other 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 alpha that I'm running is running fine, so I'm not quite sure what is exactly causing it.
Any more comments on this? Anyone else wants to add?
Vince is asking me if I'm using the internal built-in RPC or separate. I'm using separate. The HTTP endpoint is disabled on 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 and enabled on the RPC daemon.
And 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 is also saying that has had issues with the new with 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 endpoints not working at all on the latest alpha using Docker.
Okay, then I can try with the integrated RPC from 𝗟𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 and we'll report back.
All right. Okay. Thank you. That is all from Repo Watch this week. Abel, back to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now, we don't have Juan here today, so if I'm not mistaken, I think Chris might be available to do Protocol Watch. If not, I can have a look at it and try and attempt to it as well. But Chris, if you're available, please let us know.
I am, but I have not looked at that part of the agenda, so I will need to look at that and then let you know if I can speak to it.
Sure thing. I'll do the same. Let's have a look. I believe. Oh yes. Small comment from Derek about signal renting. Have you checked that GIP out?
Is Derek here? Hey,
Derek.
Derek.
Yes, he is. There you go. Do you want to elaborate on this comment, Derek?
Yeah, I was looking at the signal rent proposal, which is very, very in depth. One I guess alternative idea, which I don't know if it's been explored, is the concept of using streaming payments, or essentially like a prepaid stream, and whether that's into directly into the curation reserve, which would then give curators kind of this guaranteed incentive, whether there were queries generated or not. They at least know that they will get that stream slowly going into the curation reserve, or I would say even more ideally, that stream could be applied just through the existing economics with the protocol, having 1% burned, 10% to the curation reserve, 89% to indexer delegators. The implementation of that seems like it would be a little bit tougher, but it seems like overall this type of a system might be easier to introduce into the protocol and removes the dependency of necessitating the principal protected bonding curves. And so it might be a little bit easier to implement and a little bit easier to understand. So I just wanted to see if that as a concept was explored.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, sorry, Chris, you were going to...
I was just going to say thank you for sharing. That's all.
Yes. Yeah. Appreciate that. Yeah. Does anyone in the audience have any particular thoughts on that? Otherwise, we can always circle back on this later. I must admit, I must read the proposal in detail, so I have a better way of responding to this. But if anyone has any particular comments on this, please do shout. If not, we will promptly move on and just express thanks to Derek for bringing that up. Thank you. Okay, cool. Well, now we move on into the feedback session. So for for additional context, we have been speaking to a bunch of people and getting different pieces of feedback about IOH and how we could potentially improve it. And we thought, hey, why not make this an IOH session in itself, very meta in that sense, because we want to make this venue massively valuable for all the folks who work super hard to contribute to the network. And so, just to give you guys an idea of our vision for IOH, it is to be the town square for indexes, right? And some key aspects that we think are important in this call is, if you're an indexer, this is a great opportunity for you to participate. So, exercise your voice and share your opinions, have impact. There are particular GIPs that we discuss and have discussed in the past. And so, those are great opportunities for people to kind of like share sentiment on those GIPs. There are a bunch of ecosystem updates. We have the protocol watch and the repo watch sections. And then this is also a great opportunity to experience a knowledge share. So many people, we had Alex from Streaming Fast last week to talk all about substreams. And then also it's quite nice to get together as a community and, build those kind of relationships amongst, your fellow indexers. So we think that all of these aspects are important in IOH and hopefully bring value to you as an indexer. But we have a question. So of the things I just mentioned, which one would you say brings the most value to you at IOH? And we're going to post a poll in the chat, in the stage chat here, so that we can gauge your perspective. Oh, it's already there. Fantastic. So if you could spend some time looking at the poll in the stage chat, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So we'll give people 15 to 30 seconds to vote on that because we're curious. Oh, I see the votes going up. Very satisfying. Oh, wow. C is leading the pack. C and D. Oh, wow. That's good. So a lot of +1s for knowledge sharing and building relationships. Good to see. Good to see. Oh, wow.
Really appreciate the engagement.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love the instant gratification of having a poll and seeing the engagement. That's really good to know because things like this give us an idea of what you guys value and what we should put more emphasis on. So yeah, thank you all for that response there. So as you guys may or may not be aware, we're really fortunate in the Graph ecosystem to have a bunch of different venues to keep up to date with all that goes on in the ecosystem, right? So you have the community call, which happens on a monthly basis. You have GRTIQ, which we mentioned, happens on a weekly basis. We have the core developers call, which also happens on a monthly basis, the GRT participant update, and of course, IOH. And the way that we see IOH fitting neatly into that landscape of content, if you will, is that it's highly technical and it happens at a quite a high frequency, right, relative to the other venues that exist, right? So it's on a weekly basis, and so it's highly indexer focused, highly technical, and kind of all of the content that we want to produce, we have produced in the past and want to produce in the future, will kind of like be within that ballpark. So yeah, just to kind of give you guys an idea of where we're headed. So now we're going to move into the section of some potential ideas that we could incorporate to meet this vision of making this the town square for indexers and making this as maximally beneficial for you guys as possible. And one of them is collecting feedback, which is kind of what we're doing here, to make sure that we have this tight feedback loop. And another one is potentially a new section. So a few members of the community and I have been speaking about this new potential section called Network Watch. So just to give you guys an idea of what that is, so as an indexer, you want to run the best possible operation to increase the quality of service of the decentralized network, right? And as we all know from Graph Day, the hosted service will be sunsetted, hopefully by Q1 of 2023. And so that means that hopefully by that time, if that is true, all of the requests that are being handled by the hosted service will be moved to the decentralized one, the decentralized network, and that demand will be on the shoulders of indexers. And so we would like to potentially have a section where we analyze QoS, like at key metrics in relation to QoS, which stands for quality of service of the decentralized network, every single week, and then kind of like discuss ways we could potentially improve that, right? It kind of follows the adage that what gets measured gets managed, right? So just as a general way to collect sentiment, would that be a useful section on top of our already existing protocol watch and a protocol watch and repo watch? So we have another poll for you guys, yes or no. So curious to hear your thoughts there, guys. All right, let's have a look. All right. Well, this is an overwhelming yes with a 1. Let's fucking go. So that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to getting that into the hands of you guys very soon. The one thing I will say on that is it's quite tricky to measure quality of service, and so we'll be working alongside the EduNode team to figure out, how to what metrics make sense to highlight on a weekly basis. Cool. Well, another aspect that we would like to discuss in relation to improving indexer office hours is, like we mentioned at the top of the episode, we believe that indexer office hours we want index office hours to be the town square for indexers. And to that end, we would like to get more community, make this venue more community owned and operated. And many of you have already expressed interest to help out and play a more active role in IOWitch, which we are incredibly grateful for. And so as a way to try and encourage that, we will be introducing topics and figuring out ways for you guys to vote on them. We've already been doing a little bit of that in the prior episodes, where we've had more of an open discussion with a few set of topics, and then kind of have voted on that. And we've seen that's been great for engagement and also tailoring the content to indexers. And so we want to do more of that. And so we'll be exploring ways that we will be doing that. One specific question I have for you guys is, there are 2 types of content that we could potentially discuss, right? One is kind of more forward-looking, interesting content that is impactful for indexers, but maybe less so in the immediate term. So think about the R&D roadmap discussions we had. Amazing announcements that came out of Graph Day, and we spoke about all of them in detail, and some of them are interesting but don't necessarily have like an immediate impact on you today, but are good for you to know just as general ecosystem knowledge. And then there's specific kind of like technical if you lightning talks, if you will, or just specific ways of how to optimize your indexing operation or something like this. Would you prefer more of the kind of high level, interesting content, or more of the technical aspect? So we're going to go ahead and post another one in the chat. I see Chris is typing. I think I may have sent him this one. If not, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't have this one.
Do I? Okay, no worries. I'll do that then. So asking about. Okay, so let's go general content versus technical, and then I'll add maybe.
To me, the dimension was slightly different, which is like, is it like high level kind of future looking, maybe slightly more general content versus like more in the trenches content that will, impact your indexing operation in, the next 3 months, the short term.
Yeah, that's better framing. Oh, wow. 2 is off to the races, which is the more technical. That's very telling. This is really good. This is amazing. Keep it coming, guys. This is very gratifying to see. Nice on pain. Oh wow, that's an overwhelming oh look, L2. I like it. Okay, so that's amazing. That's really telling. And so we will be focused more on the technical aspects going forward. Another question we'd like to ask is formats. So we have various different formats that we like to engage with. Anything from a fireside chat to a lightning talk, an AMA, a panel. And so again, another poll in the chat. Would love to hear your perspective, everyone. What format would you best? What format do you think provides the most amount of value for you? We're just going ahead and posting that in the chat, and so feel free to vote away. This is really helpful, by the way, and I really do appreciate everyone's engagement. This is really beneficial to understand the general sentiment from the community. So thank you all. All right. Okay. Oh, wow. Open discussions pulling away. So it looks like we're in between lightning talks and open discussions. Those seem to be the overwhelming majority there. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, well, now we are entering into the section of the conversation where we ask more general feedback. And so if you guys could share, if you had one suggestion or piece of feedback for IOH and how we could make it better, or what you feel is missing, what would you say that is? And feel free to write that in the stage chat or in the or you can even unmute and discuss. So I want to kind of move this into a more of an open discussion now. If you guys have any specific feedback on how we can potentially improve.
Yeah,
You guys. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it recently already improved some, but for quite some time, it felt like there was a disconnect between what was happening behind the scenes and what we as operators are or not doing. Right now, there is some big things coming, like indexer mainnet that will become multi-chain, the shutdown of the hosted service, which I personally feel are quite welcome, so that we can go to the next iteration of the mainnet, but sort of the information flow around that, and sort of what is happening, what are the core teams working on. I think it has improved lately with among others the feedback from the working groups. But yeah, I would definitely would like to see increased line of sight, even if just, well, there is twofold. It's just the curiosity of what is happening, but it's also the real scenario of preparing for what is coming.
That's great feedback. So you feel that there is more of an opportunity to have a better line of communication amongst the core developers and the indexer community, and kind of help the indexer community be up to date with all the happenings, so that they can be more prepared for all the big things that are going to come down the road. And the sunsetting of the hosted service being one example. Is that a fair way to describe what you just said there?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's fantastic feedback and very important indeed, because we we want to ensure that everyone in this call who and all of the indexers in the entire network feel confident about all of the updates that are coming and feel well prepared and also in the know. So that's amazing feedback. Thank you so much. Anything else? Would love to hear more. This is the opportunity to kind of share general feedback. So please do. We got a +1 for you, Cohen, from Derek. So yeah, thank you. We will definitely keep that top of mind and make more of an effort to ensure this is the case. Yeah, guys, please keep it coming. This is fantastic. And if anyone in the audience as well would like to come up on stage, feel free to just raise your hand and we'll gladly invite you. Or if you want, you can go ahead and write in the stage chat. Okay, we got some requests. All right. Python Node has just been invited to the stage. Welcome to the stage, Titan Node. Please share your feedback.
Hello, hello.
Yes,
Yes,
I can
can
hear
you hear me?
Wonderful. Yes, lovely to meet you, Titan Node. Yeah, feel free.
Sorry, I literally just joined the channel. I missed the conversation. I just put up my hand because I wanted to come up on stage. So sorry if there was a conversation.
No worries. Just to catch you up on the conversation. So we're having a feedback session and discussing ways that we can improve IOH. And the question I just posed to the community was if there was one thing that you could do to improve IOH, what would that be? We had a really good suggestion from Cohen saying that a better line of communication amongst core developers and in the indexer community would be ideal, so indexers feel prepared with the changes that are about to come. So yeah, any sort of feedback in relation to IOH would be welcome. So if you have any, please do share.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Just off the top of my head, quick introduction. I'm actually from the LivePeer community, and we run something similar called the water cooler chats, and which actually was inspired by the indexer office hours. So it's very cool to see this growing, and we actually take a lot of ideas from you guys. So
this is awesome.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's probably similar to how the LivePeer ecosystem works, just having better communication lines between core developers and, in our case, it's orchestrators, and for you guys, it's indexers and stuff. What we do is we do try and do weekly interviews of core developers. So we actually bring them on and do just a Q&A session to learn about them. And that's been actually really successful lately. So that's just something we do, and we just started doing it recently, and it's pretty awesome. So I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's something. It's all about getting to know the core developers, personally, what their background is, and then also what they're working on. And it's just a really impromptu, just Q&A session. Really, it lasts about 20 minutes.
I think if we can get some of the core developers to just give us some tips and tricks on their expertise, whatever their expertise area is. For example, I don't know, get Ford to talk about tips and tricks using the indexer CLI or the indexer agent. Get I don't know, Thiago to talk about Graphman and how to do certain things like copy subgraphs from one shard to another, or so on and so forth. That would be amazing.
Interesting. Yeah. So kind of the knowledge share from certain folks who have particular expertise in given areas. Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. And it comes back to what we were speaking about earlier in terms of helping people upgrade their setups with these new tips and tricks. That's great feedback. That's great feedback. Amazing. Well, yeah, that's a pleasant surprise, Titan. Thank you for showing up and sharing that information. And we're glad that there is a connection between the Graph ecosystem and the LivePeer one. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, like I said, we're definitely a little brother of you guys when it comes to ecosystem size. But we take a lot of inspiration from you guys, and I know I'm a community lead with LivePeer, so I've been kind of unfortunately I haven't been able to make it to Indexer office hours as much as I'd like to. But I like what you guys are doing, and we are full LivePeer often talks about the graph just because we build on top of the graph. And so even people that dual stake LivePeer and graph, if they know of the two ecosystems, we often try to stake towards indexers who are indexing towards LivePeer. So yeah, that has been an interesting conversation too. About ease of staking on explorers and stuff. So that's been a large topic in our community lately. Yeah, so a lot of core developers doing Q&A about our new explorer we just launched I think a week ago. So which is all indexed by the graph.
That's really good to hear. That's really good to hear. Maybe it might be worth having a chat with you offline just to maybe share some notes about how we can both help each other out. Because yeah, there's definitely some overlap and alignment with the stuff that we do. So yeah, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Great. Well, like, please keep the feedback coming. Would you know, last call for anyone who has any more feedback before we move on to the next section. Yeah, please do share it again in the stage chat or via voice, either by raising your hand or unmuting your mic. Okay. Oh, I see some stuff in the stage chat. 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗂𝗧 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗂𝗂𝗧 count in the Explorer. Can you elaborate, Derek?
Yeah, I've been talking with a few people recently about the, you know, in the Explorer, when you go to the participants page and you look at different indexers and how it's currently being curated. But I think, and you know, obviously we're talking to people who are in IOH, so I would imagine that everyone would have a pretty favorable opinion of this. But it seems like, you know, because it is a pretty core staple for indexer communities to coordinate and, you know, stay up to date. And even in the delegator communities, a lot of people will say like, oh yeah, you know, check and see if your indexer participates in IOH. You know, that's a good way to see a good protocol participant. But doing like a count of the POAPs or you know, something like that would be an easy way to display like, hey, this indexer is a, you know, frequent participant in the community, in addition to just running the, you know, the base indexer that they're doing.
Completely agree. It kind of it lines up with a lot of the conversations we've been having about reputation. Like that is one form of reputation. Yeah, no, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't count in the Explorer, and but perhaps it should, or perhaps some. I mean, reputation is a very interesting topic, and it has many different angles for sure. And I appreciate that this is potentially one as well. Soulbound tokens, yes, is something that we've spoken about in the past. Actually, Chris, if you want, feel free to speak about that if you have any particular words on that.
No particular thought. You know, just I think reputation is enormously important in these communities. And like, as much as the underlying protocols maintain these properties of permissionlessness and so on, I think that the social layer that exists is enormously important to the like health and longevity of these communities. So yeah, reputation matters. And yeah, IOH POAPs are certainly, you know, a strong form of reputation. But yeah, we don't want these things to be transferable. So maybe soulbound tokens are a better way. And for anyone that might not know, a soulbound token is kind of like an NFT that you can't transfer. So if it's awarded to you, you know, you can't sell it to somebody.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Chris. I appreciate that. Cool. Well, again, just the last call for feedback before we move on to the next section. This has already been an incredibly helpful session, at least for me personally, because I think there's a lot of things now that we can make active strides towards in terms of improving the experience for you guys. And so, yeah, we appreciate all the feedback thus far. But yeah, like I said, last call before we move into the last section. And, you know, we have 20 minutes to jump into the next section. So, yeah, speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say.
Although, you know, in real terms, you can give us feedback anytime.
Yes, of course. I probably shouldn't have said that. Yes, of course. This is. I think, you know, one thing that is incredibly important is the constant feedback, so that we can continuously iterate. That was obviously a joke. Yes, of course, we will always be welcome to feedback, and we'll potentially even do another one of these sessions in the future if you guys deem it valuable. So yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I don't see any more comments in the stage chat, and I don't see any more raised hands, so I'm assuming that we're good to move on to the next section. The next section is going to be an open discussion on index operations. We have a few topics that we could potentially discuss. Yes, perfect. Chris is already on it. Amazing. Superstar. Thank you, sir. So those are the topics we could potentially discuss for the final, well, now it's almost 15 minutes. So guys, please vote away and we will dive into whatever people want to discuss. All right, let's see. Well, we have A pulling away with 5 votes. We'll give it another maybe 5 to 10 seconds to see how things change. Looks like A is still ahead. Oh, yeah, even further now. There we go. Let's dive into topic A, which is database optimization. And we are very fortunate to have Payne with us today to speak a bit about his experience there and maybe share some advice with other fellow indexers. So Payne, without further ado, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Abel. Yeah, so I just wanted to prop everyone for a open discussion regarding database optimizations because I feel like there's going to be a time, probably very soon, sooner than everyone expects, where we might need to start optimizing our databases for faster indexing and faster query serving. And I've been playing around with just general Postgres configs in the effort to try to speed up the 721 marketplace that our beloved Derek published and destroyed our machines with. Yeah, so basically what we've done was we started the 721 marketplace subgraph on our production DB, which is running basically just everything stock, more or less. It's just stock Postgres, Postgres configs from Docker, stock graph nodes, everything, whatever. And we've let that sync for a while. In the meantime, we've set up a new server. We started syncing 𝗟𝗏𝗀𝗳 there from scratch. Waited for 3 days, got it up and running, and then we started a single instance of a graph node connected to the local 𝗟𝗏𝗀 node with the 721 marketplace subgraph on it. And then we started playing around with database settings. So what I found was basically I was trying to, like, during mission control testnet back in 2020, me and Sebastian were doing a lot of changes to the Postgres config just to make sure that we're on top of everything and we can get that Uniswap subgraph back in the day to sync faster. So I've turned that particular database into a literal suicide database. Pretty much everything that's related to redundancy, such as fsync, it's and off. There's basically everything that if that database suddenly crashes, then everything is well, the writes that are in the pipe are gone, so your data would be corrupt. So what I've noticed was little to no improvement after doing this. Well, it was some kind of improvement, probably like around like 20% or something like that. But then I was talking with 𝗨𝗀𝗳𝗂𝗪, and he suggested turning off, I think was JIT from the DB settings. So for him, the difference doing this for this particular subgraph, again, we're only talking about one single subgraph. His speed increase was around 50%, whereas me with all the other settings, I was able to get around 10 to 20x indexing performance. Yes, we're talking about indexing speed, Chris. And again, for this particular subgraph, I'm not entirely sure if everything else is also affected or not. But yeah, so yeah, I used well, I didn't use BG Hero because I knew from my early experience what I should do regarding to Postgres settings and what each of them does. Was basically just read the manual. But yeah, that was like I didn't expect JIT to set to off to offer such a major improvement. But yeah, also besides that, we also deleted all the indexes that I could find on the 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀 subgraph. So that basically reduced the size from like 400 gigabytes that it has on our production DB to around like 15 gigabytes, which is absolutely mind-blowing. But yeah, obviously, you lose the ability to query faster on it, so it's only helping faster indexing. And if someone tries to query that, your database will probably blow up. So yeah, it's a fairly big trade-off by deleting indexes there. And if you want to set them back on, I think it was gonna take like, yeah, queries become unusable without indexes, that's for sure. But yeah, if you want to set them back up, it's gonna take probably days or even a week or so. Just because I from what I remember, Postgres is mainly single-threaded, especially when it comes to table operations. So yeah, those tools that Vince and Chris shared are super nice. You guys should look into. But yeah, my question for the community is: have you guys played around with your Postgres settings? Did anything blow up? Did you make anything go faster or slower? What was your experience?
Yeah, I could share a little bit of my experience as well. So, one thing that I'm not doing that I think you're experimenting with on your suicide database is playing with settings with removing fsinks and any other kind of safety settings that we have on Postgres. That's something that is extremely risky, even though I think that you're able to see a good and a very interesting increase. What I've been playing with the most is JIT, like you mentioned. So people familiar with this in Postgres knows that you can tune JIT, so it kicks in only for some larger queries, and that's how I started at first, trying to figure out, try to basically increase the threshold where JIT gets enabled or gets activated, and but I turned out I just kept increasing the limit over and over, and then in the end I would just turn it off, and just turn it off completely, and that seems to work fine. But a caveat there, I'm not sure of the performance impact on queries. JIT might be actually very beneficial on queries latency. So yeah, be careful if you try to enable that. My recommendation would be to activate JIT, deactivate JIT only on your indexing or primary database. And that implies having a separate secondary database where you enable streaming replication to, and that secondary database would be used for queries. So then you could have JIT turned off just for indexing and JIT remaining activated for queries. But that requires two databases. That requires a more complex setup for database. But that's something that could be useful. Speaking of which, having a separate database setup like that, indexing versus query database, that can be useful to optimize the query, the storage cache on the database. So one database will have a cache that will fill with indexes for tables that are queried the most. The other database will use this cache for the latest subgraph that you're trying to catch up to, right? So that may be another strategy that could be useful.
What I find interesting is that JIT was turned off by default until like I think 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, or I'm not entirely sure. Like it was fairly recent until they decided to turn it on by default, and without alerting users. So some databases I know they blow up because I read
Right.
some
I think
forums.
I don't know if it was you or someone mentioned that EngInNode might be using an older version for the
No, I confirmed they're all using JIT on there.
Okay. Yeah, because doing some digging into that issue, it looks like some of the queries that GraphNode is using is really setting JIT on a wrong path, and some queries look very complex, so JIT tries to optimize the hell out of it, but turned out that on execution, the queries returns very, very quickly, and the JIT overhead is completely wasted. So there's something specific about the way that indexing happens that sets up the optimizer on the wrong track.
Do we know whether like cold start behavior comes into this at all? What I mean by that is, some kind of compilers, transpilers, whatever. The first time that they run and the kind of code paths are cold, they're a lot slower than after they've been running for a while.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I think in theory JIT is supposed to be able to cache the compile query or something for reuse, but maybe it's not able to do that efficiently if GraphNode comes back with exactly the same query every time or something like that. Where I saw this type of behavior when you restart your server, your Postgres instance, until the cache fills up, the performance is usually very poor. So it can take 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour before your database is able to get his full performance, right? But there maybe there's something there for JIT, but I didn't really witness it.
I'll briefly going back to what Payne had talked about his suicide DB. Yeah, we've tried similar stuff. I think like what's interesting about the data set. So I'm really talking about the data set that GraphNode produces here. Is that it's fully deterministic, right? Like at least in theory, every indexer should produce the same data. And because the process of creating this data is deterministic, like data loss is actually not much of a problem, right? Like if for whatever reason, a bunch of writes that GraphNode has queued up get lost, that's fine, right? As long as the database doesn't get corrupted, the next time GraphNode starts it up and processes the state of the database, it'll just pick up where it left off. So in this particular application, I think like a lot of those, write safety guarantees actually just don't matter, for our use case. The one thing that is worth saying though is turning off things like fsync does mean that the database can be corrupted. And that obviously you don't want. The way to mitigate this, or at least the way that we have approached mitigating this, although I should also say that we don't currently run in suicide mode, or we probably need a better name for that, but is to use a copy on write file system. So if your Postgres instance is running on something like ZFS, then you can run with basically all the safety mechanisms turned off, and even if Postgres crashes at like an unopportune time, you shouldn't see any database corruption.
Yeah, that's an interesting option to consider. On our end, we're running a very classic file system, ext4, like most people, I think. But we're using a battery backup rate controller, which is supposed to, in theory, speed up fsyncs and these things a lot. But I don't have data to really prove that it's really actually helping. But yeah, generally speaking, anything that could reduce latency, especially on fsyncs, that's probably going to help a lot.
Have you actually run a Postgres on ZFS? Because I have been working a lot with BTRFS, which is another copy on write file system, and it doesn't always play nice with Postgres. And generally speaking, copy on write file systems are advised not to be used for database kind of loads in general. So I find it an interesting recommendation, but I was curious if you have actually tried it and run some of those big databases on it.
Yeah, we've tried it. And in fact, I certainly recognize that running some kinds of databases on copy on write file systems can be problematic, but it's my understanding that Postgres and ZFS actually play really nicely together. And this is not something I have measured, but I understand that as much as everything is trade-offs, using ZFS, particularly with the LZ4 compression enabled, can actually unlock significant performance benefits. Even though you're trading away compute cycles for reduced data size, if the query that you are processing is accessing or has to scan through a very large amount of data, in particularly in those types of workloads, leveraging like a ZFS compressed store can actually speed up query response times because you just have to read less data off of the disk. So yeah, I definitely not recommending it. It just in every instance, but I do think there are scenarios where it can work out.
Yeah, one of the last things I've been doing is actually move my BSC databases out of the copy on write file system because it has been having too much issues. So yeah, I guess it's an area worth exploring further. Where it works, where it doesn't work, if it needs specific parameters or not. Because yeah, like I said, I've just moved all my BSC databases out of the copy on write file system because I was having too much issues and too much performance drawdown using it like that.
If I may just interject into the conversation, there is a question for you, Chris, from Vince asking your opinions on JIT off. If you could elaborate on that, and then maybe
Sure.
that could be the
I know we're
last
at the top of the hour as well, so yeah, I'll go fast.
Amazing, thank you.
Honestly, for me in particular, it's not something I played with JIT. The obvious downside, as was raised before by 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗓, I think, is that you're obviously trading away, potentially you're trading away query time performance to achieve that. But yeah, it's worth testing. I mean, theoretically, again, as 𝗨𝗧𝗓 said, you could get around that by running like your ingestion database and then doing streaming replication to basically a set of databases that you purely use as query replicas, and then you put JIT on on those instances. The only thing that doesn't make me feel good about that is it's kind of fragile. Like the way that we treat Postgres instances is, as a cluster with automated failover. And so if you're kind of creating these two classes of nodes, you can't really treat them as one homogeneous cluster that you can fail over within. And I guess the other thing is just that with every node, every Postgres node that you add, you're adding significant storage costs as well. But definitely worth playing with.
There you have it. I hope that was a satisfying answer, Vince. And yeah, that about puts us at the top of the hour. Thank you all for attending. And the final thing we do before we wrap up is share the secret word for the POAP. And that is, this is 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂, all capital letters. Go ahead and download the POAP app and just type in the secret word I just mentioned into the app, and you'll be able to claim. Thank you all for attending today's session. This was immensely helpful. I certainly learned a lot about what the community desires going forward. And so thank you all for your participation, engagement. I particularly enjoyed that conversation about database optimization too. So yeah, thank you all. And I look forward to seeing you all again, same time next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.